Welcome back to MaleRevenge, the channel where good men who were pushed too far finally stand their ground. If you believe a patient man, with the Lord beside him, can outlast any liar who wronged him, then friend, you are in the right place. The good book says it plain, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord." What follows is fiction, and any resemblance to real folks is pure chance. Before we begin, tell me down in the comments where you are listening from tonight. Now settle in and lean in close. A man can spend his whole life learning to read machines, and never once learn to read other men. I found that out at 64 years old, in a gravel lot that smelled of cut grass and motor oil. The afternoon, a trembling stranger caught my wrist and told me my grandson was about to lose everything we had. "Don't let your boy sign anything," the old man whispered, his eyes darting toward the row of show cars where a smiling man in a fine coat held court. That man took my shop, my savings, my whole life, and when I tried to fight him, he made sure I could not. He is not well, I told myself. He is only an old man with a sad story. I had built my whole life on solid numbers and proven facts, and a stranger's panic was neither one. But I need you to hear me. That warning was the only reason my grandson is alive today, and the only reason my name still hangs over that door. Before I take you back to the start, let me thank you for being here. It means more than you know. Do me a kindness and drop a comment telling me where you are listening from and what the sky looks like out your window. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And let me be honest with you up front. Parts of this story have been changed and dramatized for the telling, so any resemblance to real folks or real places is only chance. But the truth underneath it is real, and I pray it stays with you. My Ruth used to read me one verse whenever my temper got the best of me. Romans, chapter 12, verse 19. "Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord." I had forgotten that verse. This is the story of how the Lord made me remember it. My name is Dale Brennan. For 31 years, I taught high school physics and ran the auto shop 2 towns over. And I told my students the same thing every fall. A machine will always tell you the truth if you know how to listen. A loose belt squeals. A bad bearing whines. The trouble is, people are not machines, and the worst of them have learned to run quiet. When I retired, Ruth told me it was finally time to chase the boy I used to be. So we poured our savings into a tired brick building on Mercer Street, and I hung a sign that read, "Brennan's Garage." Then the Lord took her from me, slow and cruel. 2 years of hospital bills that drained the shop down to the rivets. By that autumn, the bank was 60 days from taking the building, and the only thing I had left of my wife was the car. A 1970 Chevelle, deep green, the one we built together across 15 winters. My grandson Cody had come to live with me after his daddy, my only son, passed. He was 23, all heart and no brakes, and he loved that garage like it was a living thing. "We are not losing Grandma's shop," he kept telling me. "I will find a way, Grandpa." I should have heard the fear under those words. A scared young man will grab any rope somebody throws him and never once check if it is tied to an anchor. The county car show fell on the 2nd Saturday of October, and Cody begged me to bring the Chevelle. I rolled her into the show row and stood back while men my age circled her like she was something holy. For 1 hour, I forgot about the bank. Then I saw my grandson across the lot, laughing, shaking hands with a stranger in a tailored coat that did not belong within a mile of that gravel. I walked over. The man turned and gave me a beautiful smile. Warm, easy. "Mr. Brennan," he said, taking my hand in both of his. "Roland Pierce, your grandson speaks the world of you." But his eyes did not smile along with his mouth. They moved over me quick and flat, the way a man at an auction prices a lot he already means to buy. For one breath, I felt like a thing being appraised. Then the warmth came flooding back, and I told myself I had imagined the whole thing. "Fine machine," he said, nodding toward the Chevelle. "I would hate to see a craftsman like you lose his shop over a little bad luck." I had said nothing about the shop. "How would you know about my shop?" I asked. His smile only widened. "Your grandson worries out loud. Mr. Brennan, it speaks well of the boy. He is a good man." "Grandpa," Cody said, beaming at him. "Lord, let the boy be right," I prayed. But somewhere under that easy smile, the bearing was already whining. That was when the old man found me. Worn flannel, trembling hands, near 70 years. Sam, he said his name was. He gripped my forearm hard enough to leave a mark, and his words came low and fast, the way a man passes a secret in church. "I watched that fellow take my shop over in Mansfield. Smiled the entire time. By the time I understood the papers, it was finished. My boy tried to fight him. His eyes filled. He is not with us anymore." He squeezed tighter. "Whatever else you do, go home and read what your grandson has already signed. Pride goeth before a fall," Ruth always said, quoting her proverbs at me. My pride wanted to wave the old man off as a sad and broken soul, but my gut, the part of a man that finishes the math before the rest of him catches up, would not let me. So I crossed that lot, and I asked my grandson straight out, "Cody, what have you put your name on?" And the look that came over his face, proud and frightened at the very same time, told me everything before he opened his mouth. "I saved us, Grandpa," he said, grinning wide. "I signed the partnership papers this morning." I did not yell at Cody on the drive home. The Lord knows I wanted to. But you do not fix a stripped bolt by leaning harder on the wrench. You only ruin the threads for good. So I drove, and I let the boy talk. "He came to the shop on his own, Grandpa. Said he had heard about us. He has done this all over Ohio. Saved a dozen shops just like ours." Cody's hands moved when he got scared, the same way his father's used to. "I read it. Most of it. He sat right there and walked me through the hard parts." "I am sure he did," I said. "He explained them, all right," I told myself. He explained them the way a fox explains the henhouse to the hens. But I kept that behind my teeth. The boy had signed out of love for his dead grandmother's shop, and you do not punish a man for loving the wrong thing too hard. "We will sort it out in the morning," I told him. "Get some sleep." He did not sleep, and neither did I. I sat in Ruth's chair until the window went gray, turning the whole thing over, and by sunup I had made up my mind to lay eyes on the shop before I read a single word. I never got to the reading, because when I pulled into the lot of Brennan's garage at 7 in the morning, there were 3 trucks parked across my bays, and a half-dozen strangers walking my floor like they had paid for the privilege. They had clipboards. They had a camera. One of them knelt at the front of a customer's Buick, copying the number off the windshield. And another had my rolling toolbox open, photographing the drawers. My tools. The tools my father left me. A younger fellow near the lift kept his head down and would not meet my eye. There was something in the set of his shoulders the others did not have. Something that looked almost like shame. "This is private property," I said, and it came out harder than I meant it to. "You are going to want to step off it." A broad man in a company jacket looked up without any hurry. He had the bored eyes of a fellow who had done this 100 times. "Brennan," he said, "we are running the asset assessment. It is in your agreement. Section 9. You are welcome to read it." He leaned on the word "read" like it was a joke only he had been let in on. "Get away from my toolbox." He did not move. "And I will tell you the thing I am not proud of. 64 years old, and I crossed that floor and took him by the collar. The Lord forgive me. My hands knew what they wanted before my head ever caught up." "Easy, old man," he said, smiling, not even lifting a hand. "Lay one finger on me and that is assault, and we own that too." He tipped his head toward a phone propped on the workbench, its little red eye glowing. They had been filming the whole time. They had wanted me to do exactly what I had very nearly done. I let go. My heart was slamming against my ribs. Cody had come in behind me, white as a bedsheet. "Grandpa," he whispered, "what is happening?" The broad man brushed at his collar like I had soiled it. "First payment posts in 9 days," he said. "When your grandson misses it, and he will, every wrench in this building belongs to us, free and clear. The car, too." He smiled slow. "That pretty green Chevelle? We have the paperwork on her already." The floor dropped out from under me. "That car is mine. It is not part of any deal. Read your agreement, Mr. Brennan." He gathered his men with a little tip of his chin, easy as a man whistling up dogs. "It is all in there, every word, signed and legal." At the door he paused. "Roland sends his regards. He truly does admire your work." They pulled out in a line, 3 trucks, in no hurry at all. The way men move when they have done a thing so many times, it has stopped being a crime and turned into a chore. Cody sank down onto an overturned crate and put his face in his hands. "I did this," he said, and his voice cracked clean in half. "I walked them right up to our door. I thought I was saving it. Grandpa, I thought I was saving her shop." I went and stood over him and put my hand on the back of his neck, the way I used to when he was small and the dark had gotten too big for him. "Look at me," I said. "You did a foolish thing for a loving reason. That is not the same as a sin, son. The Lord knows the difference, and so do I. Now dry your face. I cannot fight these people and carry you both at the same time." He wiped his eyes and tried to square his shoulders. He was working so hard to be a man about it. And that broke something in me, worse than the trucks ever could. I stood in the middle of my own shop, shaking. And I understood 2 things in the same breath. The first was that they had not come to bargain. They had come to count what they already believed was theirs. The second was that the old man from the show had not been raving. "The car, too. We have the paperwork on her already." Ruth's car, folded into a deal my grandson signed. It was not possible. Cody could not pledge a car that was titled in my name. There was only one way under heaven that line could be true, and I did not want to look straight at it. So I drove home, set the copy of that contract down on Ruth's kitchen table, and I started to read it the way I should have made my grandson read it. Every single line. I have graded 10,000 papers in my life, and I know the exact moment a student's answer turns from a mistake into a lie. There is a particular coldness that comes over you. I felt that same coldness settle into my chest at 2:30 in the morning, alone at Ruth's table, when I finally understood what my grandson had truly signed. The foreman had not been bluffing. What Cody put his name to was no partnership. It was a loan, dressed up in Sunday clothes, with an interest rate hidden so far back in the pages that a tired boy would never have found it, and a repayment schedule built from the ground up to fail. Miss a single payment, and the whole balance came due at once. Default. And on default, the lender did not have to stand before any judge. The building, the lift, the tools, all of it passed to them, clean and quiet, inside of days. It was not a loan meant to be paid. It was a snare with a clock on it, and that clock had 9 days left to run. But it was the last page that put the ice all the way through me. There was an attachment, a schedule of what they called additional secured property, and on it, in plain black type, sat a single line. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle. Ruth's car. My car. Titled in my name, not Cody's. A boy cannot pledge a thing that is not his to give. So I went hunting for how they had done it. And at the very back of the stack, I found my answer. And Lord, I wish I had not. A title assignment. A clean transfer of ownership. And down on the line for the registered owner, in blue ink, was my signature. Except I had never signed it. I sat and stared at my own name, written in a hand that was almost mine. The R in Brennan reached a touch too far. The pen had not lifted where mine always lifts. For 31 years I had signed that name on chalkboards and report cards, and I know it the way I know the sound of my own truck turning over on a cold morning. Somebody had studied me. Somebody had sat down with a sample of how Dale Brennan signs his name and practiced it, slow and patient, until they could lift the last thing my wife and I ever made together. I got up, dug my old service records out of the desk, and laid a true signature down beside the false one under the lamp. Side by side, the forgery was nearly perfect. Nearly. And the nearly was the part that scared me. Because nearly meant a steady hand that had done this kind of work before and taken its sweet time. That car was never just a car. Ruth and I had hauled it home on a rope the spring after we married. A rusted-out shell a man up the road had given up on. And we spent 11 years of Saturdays bringing it back from the dead. She passed me wrenches she could not name and sang the whole while. The last good drive she ever took, before the sickness stole the strength out of her, was in that green Chevelle with the windows rolled down. You cannot put a price on a thing like that. But these people had. They had set it on a schedule, between a hydraulic lift and a parts washer. This is not bad luck, I said to the empty kitchen. This is a trade. Somebody does this for a living, and a man does not get that good at copying a stranger's hand on his first try. There had been others before me. That thought sat down beside me in the dark like a cold guest. How many? I did not know yet, but I understood the shape of it now. Somewhere there was a list, and on it were the names of men who had built something with their own 2 hands and watched a smiling stranger sign it out from under them. I was simply the next name down. Ruth would have told me to pray on it before I did anything foolish. So I did. I asked the Lord for a steady hand and a clear head, and for the strength not to drive across that town and do a thing I could never take back. The verse came on its own, the way her verses always did. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. I did not feel one bit forgiving, but I felt aimed. At first light, I called Pete Lansky, who has run the county car club longer than I have been retired, and I described the old man from the show, the worn flannel, the shaking hands. Said his name was Sam. Pete went quiet a moment. That would be Sam Whitfield, he said. Had a beautiful shop over in Mansfield once. Lost the whole thing 2 years back. And not long after, he lost his boy. Awful business. Why are you asking after Sam? I told him I needed to speak to the man. Pete gave me an address, and then he said the thing that put the cold right back into me. Dale, if this is about that Pierce fellow, you are not the first to come around asking. There is a young woman been driving half of Ohio collecting paper on him. Reyes, her name is. Carmen Reyes. He paused. Word is she lost somebody to him too. Word is she does not scare easy. I thanked him and set the phone down. Out the window, the sun was coming up gray over Mercer Street. Over the shop those men meant to strip down to the studs. 9 days. I looked at the forged title in my hand, at my own name turned into a weapon against me. And on the back of it, I wrote 2 more names. Sam Whitfield. Carmen Reyes. Then I put on my coat, took up my keys, and went to find out how many people this man had already buried. Sam Whitfield lived in a rented room behind a feed store on the far side of Mansfield. And when he opened the door, I understood I was looking at my own future if I lost. He was thinner than he had been at the show, if such a thing was possible. The room smelled of cold coffee and medicine. There was a cot, a hot plate, and on the wall a single photograph of a garage with a hand-painted sign that read, Whitfield and Son. You came, he said. There was no surprise in his voice. They all come eventually, after it is too late to do them any good. I told him what had happened. The deal. The forged title. He listened with his hands folded, nodding slowly, like a man hearing a song he already knew every word of. Pierce, he said when I was done. He goes by other names in other places, but here he is Pierce. He sat at my kitchen table and called me a craftsman. Said the world had forgotten men like us. Said he wanted to protect what I built. Sam's mouth twisted. 9 months later, I was signing the deed in a lawyer's office. And my boy was dead in a shop fire the insurance would not touch. Because the wiring had been worked on. Worked on by his people. Though you will never prove it. The room went quiet. Out on the highway, a truck rattled past. I am sorry about your son, I said, and the words felt as small as words always do. I told God I would trade every bolt I ever turned to have that boy back, Sam said. God did not answer me. Pierce did. He sent a card. He laughed, and it was an awful sound. A sympathy card. I asked him if anyone had ever fought back. For the first time, something woke up behind his eyes. One girl, he said. Reyes. She does not just grieve. That one. She hunts. Got herself a whole room full of us. Go and see her, Brennan, while you have still got something left worth fighting for. He gripped my wrist with a strength that surprised me. 9 days, you said. Then you have got no time left to be careful. Carmen Reyes worked out of a half-empty unit in a row of storage garages outside Springfield. She was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with the watchful stillness of a woman who had learned the hard way that surprises are usually bad ones. She did not shake my hand. She studied me the way I study an engine I do not yet trust. Whitfield called ahead, she said. Said you were one of the stubborn ones. She stepped back from the door. Come look then. Everybody ought to see it once. She had built a wall. Photographs. Dozens of them. Men and women. Most of them gray-haired. Each one pinned beside the name of a town and a shop and a date. Lines of red string ran from face to face, town to town, year to year. all of them threading back to one man in the center. A handsome fellow with a warm, open smile. The man I had shaken hands with at the car show. 41 that I have confirmed, Carmen said quietly. Across 6 states. Garages, machine shops, a marina, 2 family farms. He finds the thing a family loves more than money, and he uses the love as the lever. My eye snagged on one photograph near the top. A man about my own age, standing beside an old pickup restored down to the chrome, his arm around a woman who was plainly his wife. Somebody had loved that truck the way Ruth and I had loved the Chevelle. Below the picture, in Carmen's neat print, was a single word. Deceased. 41, I said, mostly to myself. 41 families. And I nearly called that shaking old man a liar in my own heart. Carmen touched a photograph near the bottom of the wall. An older man with her same dark eyes, standing proud in front of a garage. That is my father, Hector. He lost his shop on a Tuesday and his life 3 weeks later. They called it a single-car accident on a dry, straight road. Her jaw tightened. My father drove that road for 40 years without so much as a scratch. I looked at that wall. At 41 ruined lives strung together with red thread. And the cold I had felt at Ruth's table came back over me tenfold. How does one man do all of this? I asked. He does not, Carmen said. That is the part nobody wants to hear. Pierce never walks into a town cold. He always has a local, somebody who already knows the shops, knows who is behind on their notes, knows which proud old man would rather lose everything than ask for help. She turned and looked at me, and her voice came down low. Somebody you would never think to doubt. Somebody you trust. That is how he reached my father. That is how he reached you. You are telling me someone here pointed him at my door, I said. I am telling you it is already done. She picked up a folder from the table. I have spent 2 months trying to put a name to his local man in your county. Whoever he is, he knows cars. He knows the trade. And he knows your shop from the inside. Her dark eyes did not leave my face. I finally got a photograph of him. I was hoping a local man like you might know the face. I took the folder. My hands, I will admit, were not quite steady. Somewhere in those pages was the person who had walked Roland Pierce up to my door and handed him my grandson. Somewhere in there was whoever I had let through my own gate without once locking it behind him. I breathed out something that was half a prayer and half a curse. The way a man does when he fears what he is about to learn. I opened it. There are faces a man forgets, and faces he carries to his grave. The one looking up at me from Carmen's folder was one I had carried for years. Only I had always pictured it grinning over a carburetor, not staring back from a surveillance photograph. Travis Cole. The best pair of hands that ever came through my shop class. Not him, I told myself, as if telling myself could make the picture lie. Lord, anybody but him. I must have made some sound, because Carmen said, "You know him." I taught him, I said. The words came out strange in my mouth. Auto shop, 11th and 12th grade, the better part of 20 years ago. I did not tell her the rest. I did not tell her that Travis Cole had come to me at 15 with a black eye and a chip on his shoulder. That his daddy was a mean drunk and his mama long gone. And that the only place on earth the boy ever held still was under the hood of a car. I did not tell her that I had stayed late 3 nights a week for 2 years teaching him, or that he had more natural feel for an engine than any student who ever passed through my door, my own son included. I did not tell her that after I lost my boy, when the shop felt like a tomb, and I could hardly make myself open the doors. It was Travis who turned up on Saturdays and worked beside me in silence, so I would not be alone in it. For a season there, God forgive me, he had been something close to a second son. I remembered the night he stayed until 2 a.m, helping me chase an electrical gremlin through an old Mustang. The two of us hollering like fools when we finally found the one bare wire. I remembered handing him his certificate and telling him he could be the finest mechanic in 3 counties if he wanted it. He had looked at me then the way a starving man looks at bread. Then he had drifted. Money trouble, folks said. A run of bad company. He left town, and I lost the thread of him the way you lose the thread of so many. When I thought of him at all, I thought of him kindly. He is the one, Carmen said, watching my face go to pieces. He is Pierce's man in your county. He has been seen with him in 3 towns now. He scouts the shops, finds the soft targets, learns the family. He is good at it, because he knows the trade from the inside. She paused. He would have known yours better than most. Did you ever let him near your books, your papers? Something cold turned over low in my chest. Because I had. Years back, when Travis was a boy I would have trusted with my life, I had let him run the shop beside me. He knew where every record was kept. He knew the Chevelle. He had stood at my elbow and watched me sign my own name, more times than either of us could ever count. He learned to forge my hand, I said slowly, at my own workbench. I had to put a hand on the back of a chair to steady myself. It is one thing to be robbed by a stranger. A stranger owes you nothing. But to be robbed with the very gift you gave a boy. To have your own kindness sharpened and turned back on you. That is a different kind of wound altogether. It does not bleed. It just sits there and aches in a place no doctor can reach. Carmen laid her palm flat on the table. Then you understand why you stay away from him. We build this clean. We take it to people who can move on it. You spook him, Pierce burns the evidence. And you lose everything in 9 days with nothing left to fight with. She was right. I knew in my bones she was right. I went to find him anyway. It was not hard. A man does not forget the way his best student thinks. I found Travis Cole at a body shop out on the county line, renting a back bay. And when he looked up from the fender he was sanding and saw me filling the doorway, his face did a thing I have not been able to unsee since. It did not harden. It crumpled. Mr. Brennan. My name cracked in his mouth, the way it had when he was a boy. The sander went still in his hand. His eyes cut past me to the empty lot, checking, like a man who is always checking. You shouldn't be here. You have got no idea what you just walked into. You forged my name. Travis. I could not keep the tremor out of it. On Ruth's car. I taught you every blessed thing you know, and you turned it into a knife and put it in my back. For a long moment he could not meet my eyes. When at last he did, there was water standing in them. And what came out of him was not the voice of a man who is guilty. It was the voice of a man who is caught. You think I had a choice? He whispered. You don't know him. You don't know what he is holding over me. Then tell me, I said. Whatever it is, there is a way through it. There is always a way through. No. The word broke out of him like a sob. There is no through it. A man died, Mr. Brennan. Years back. It was an accident. I will swear that before God till the day they bury me. But Pierce has every piece of it on paper, and he has owned me with it ever since. He came a step closer, quick, his words dropping to almost nothing. Go home, please, tonight. Because if Pierce learns you came here, he will not stop at the shop. He will take you too, the same way he took the rest of them. I came home that night with Travis's warning still ringing in my ears. And I did not have to wonder for long whether Pierce had heard I was asking questions. He was sitting on my own front porch in the dark, in Ruth's wicker chair, like a man waiting on an old friend. Mr. Brennan, Roland Pierce said warmly, you have had a long day. I thought I would save you the trouble of coming to find me. The porch light caught his face, that easy, open smile. And I understood for the first time that the smile was the most dangerous thing about him. A snake at least has the decency to look like a snake. Lord, hold my tongue, I prayed, quiet and quick, because my hands have already made up their minds to sin. Get out of my wife's chair, I said. He rose, unhurried, and gestured toward my own front door as if he were welcoming me into his home. Let us talk inside. Neighbors talk. You know how a small town is. He sat himself at Ruth's table and folded his hands. And for a moment, he looked around the kitchen with something I could have sworn was real appreciation. She had good taste, your wife. You can tell a person by the home they keep. Say what you came to say. The warmth did not leave his face, but something behind it cooled, the way a sky cools before weather. You went to see the Reyes woman today, Carmen, a determined girl. And then you went and frightened poor Travis half to death. He shook his head, almost fondly. Dale, I am going to be honest with you, because I respect a craftsman. You cannot win this. I do not say it to be cruel. I say it the way you would tell a man his engine has thrown a rod. It is simply the truth of the situation. He laid it all out plain. The paperwork was airtight. Every signature, every clause. He kept lawyers who did nothing else. The men who had fought him in a courtroom had spent their last dollar and lost anyway. And the ones who got loud, who ran to the newspapers or the sheriff, well, he spread his hands. Bad things happened to careless people. Old men fell downstairs. Space heaters caught fire. Cars wandered off dry, straight roads. I am not threatening you, he said gently. I would never. I am only observing that the world is a hazardous place for a man your age who does not watch his step. He glanced at the framed photograph on the counter. Ruth and me on the porch the summer before she took sick. She fought a long time, did she not? The bills from a fight like that can hollow out a whole lifetime of savings. I imagine the shop was about all you had left to lose. He let that sit in the quiet kitchen. I do my homework, Dale. I always know exactly what a man owns and exactly what it would break him to part with. I asked him how he managed to sleep at night. I expected a sneer. Instead, something flickered across his face that I had not braced for. A kind of tiredness, almost a sadness. Do you know what I learned a long time ago, Dale? Everybody sells. Every last one. The only honest men I ever met were the ones nobody had offered enough yet. He said it not like a boast, but like a confession. Like a man describing the very thing that had hollowed him out. I just spare folks the years of pretending. I name the price up front. There is a mercy in that, if a man is honest enough to see it. For half a breath, God help me, I almost pitied him. Then I remembered Sam Whitfield's sympathy card. You are wrong, I said. Not every man sells. Some of us have just never met a thief patient enough to wear us all the way down. Something hardened behind his eyes. There and gone in an instant, before the easy smile slid back into place. We will see, he said softly. In my experience, Dale, We always do. So here is my offer, he went on, brisk again. Sign the shop over clean, no fuss, and I will let you keep that green Chevelle. A gift between gentlemen. You walk away with your wife's car and your grandson's good name still intact. Cody is young. He has a whole life in front of him. It would be a shame for it to start with a fraud investigation. And signatures, as you have seen, can be made to point in all manner of directions. He smiled. Your good book says to turn the other cheek, does it not? Be the bigger man. Dale. Let it go. He set a card on Ruth's table. Told me I had until the payment came due to be sensible. And walked out into the dark as easy as he had come. I sat there a long while after his taillights were gone. He had quoted my own scripture at me to make me lie down. And that, more than all his threats, was the thing that finally cleared my head. Because he had it backward. My Bible does say to let the Lord repay. But letting the Lord repay has never once meant sitting still while the wolf stands in your field, counting your sheep. I thought of Travis. The water in his eyes. The tremor in his voice when he said, "You do not know what he is holding over me." Roland Pierce believed he had bought every man in this scheme. But you do not buy a man who obeys you only because he is afraid. And fear is not loyalty. Fear is a crack. And I have spent my whole life fixing broken things, finding the one weak point and working it slow and patient until the seized bolt finally gives. Roland had made just one mistake tonight. He had left me a broken man to work on. I did not go back to the body shop. If Pierce had eyes on me, he had eyes on Travis too. And I had already painted a target on the boy's back just by walking through his door once. So I did the patient thing. I learned his habits the way I once learned the timing on a stubborn engine. And on a Thursday evening, I was waiting in my truck outside the little Methodist church on Vine Street, because I remembered that Travis Cole, for all his troubles, had never once missed his mother's grave on the day she died. He came at dusk, alone, carrying a fistful of grocery store carnations. When he saw me leaning on the cemetery fence, he went still as a deer. "I told you to go home," he said. "You did." I held up my hands, empty. "I am not here to fight you, Travis. I am here because I have buried enough people I loved, and I am in no hurry to add your name to it." That landed somewhere. I saw it. He looked away, toward the rows of stones, and his jaw worked. "Your mama is out here," I said. It was not a question. I remember the week she passed. You were 17. You vanished from school for the better part of 2 weeks, and came back unable to speak to a soul. Except you came to my shop. You did not say one word. You just picked up a wrench and worked until your hands quit shaking. I let it sit. I knew you then, son. The boy I knew would have starved before he stole an old man's only car. That boy is gone. His voice was raw. You want to know how a person ends up here? It is never all at once. It is one small thing, then a worse thing to cover the first. And one morning you wake so far down the well you cannot see daylight. He turned on me, and there was real anguish in it. He has me on paper for a man's death. I move against him. I do not go to prison. I go to the bottom of a quarry. You hear me? There is no door out of this. I have hunted for one for 2 years. There is always a door, I said. You have just been too afraid to try the handle. I stepped closer, slow. I watched you bring an engine back from the dead once, one that 3 grown men had written off for scrap. You have got the gift of resurrection in those hands, Travis. A man who can do that for a machine can do it for his own life. It is never too late to turn around. Never. He shook his head, but he did not walk away. That was the whole thing of it. He did not walk away. There he is, I thought. The boy under all that fear. Lord, do not let me lose him a second time. He scrubbed his face with the back of his hand, the way men do when they are ashamed of their tears. You want to know the worst part? He said. All these years, it was never the money. It was never even the fear. It was knowing what you would think of me if you ever found out. I used to hear your voice in my head telling me to do right, and I would turn the radio up loud as it would go, so I would not listen. He laughed, and it broke in the middle. Turns out you cannot turn it up loud enough. Then quit trying, I said softly. That voice you have been running from, that is not me, son. That is the part of you that is still worth saving. The Lord does not waste a conscience on a man who is past hope. He left you that ache on purpose. What does he keep? I asked then, quietly. A man as careful as Pierce does not trust all of this to lawyers. The forgeries, the originals, the thing that holds you. Where does he keep it? For a long moment, the only sound was the wind dragging the dead leaves along the fence. There is a box, he said at last, so low I had to lean in to catch it. Everything is in it. Every name he ever forged. The real ledgers. The proof he holds over me. He keeps it close, because that box would hang him. If it ever saw daylight, he loses all of it. Every shop. Every name on that woman's wall. He swallowed hard. But the men who sit on that box are not paper men like me. You go after it. You had best make your peace first, because you may not come home. Where? Travis, I pressed. Just tell me where it is. He shook his head hard. Not here. Not tonight. His eyes were pleading with me. If I give you that, I have to be sure. Sure you can take it clean. Sure it does not fall back on me the second it goes wrong. Give me time. Let me think on it. A pair of headlights swung into the church lot behind us and stopped there, engine idling. Too far off to make out the driver. Travis went white as the carnations in his fist. Go, he breathed. Go now, and do not come back here. If that is his man, if he sees us together, I am a dead man before morning. He pushed the flowers into my hands, like he was handing off evidence. Put these on a grave. Any grave. Make it look like that is what you came for. I walked to my truck with my heart in my throat and a fistful of dying flowers. And behind me, I heard Travis call out, too loud and too cheerful. Real good to see you, sir. For whoever sat watching in that idling car. I did not know yet whether I had reached him. But I knew now what we had to steal. And I knew it might cost a man his life to do it. I noticed the gray sedan on the second day. It sat behind me on the way to the hardware store. And it was behind me again when I left, hanging back 3 cars, patient as a tick. Pierce had warned me the world was a hazardous place for a careless man. He wanted me to know I was being watched. All right, I thought. You want me to know you were there. Message received. So I did the only sensible thing. I drove like a careless old man straight to the one place in the county Pierce would expect. My own dead shop. And then I slipped out the back alley on foot, the way I had 100 times as a boy, and left the gray sedan sitting there guarding an empty building. Frank Sullivan met me at Carmen's storage unit with a thermos of coffee and a 40-year-old grudge against the world. Sully and I went back to grade school. He had done 30 years as a sheriff's deputy 2 counties over, and he had retired, mean, the way good cops do, carrying every case he never got to close. He still drove the same primer gray Nova he had owned since Nixon, and he could hear a bad lifter clear across a parking lot. He listened to the whole story without a word, working a toothpick from one side of his mouth to the other. When I finished, he set his coffee down. "Dale, I have seen this exact bird before. Different feathers. They move into a county. They buy or they scare the right people. And by the time anybody official cares, the paper all says it was legal." He looked at Carmen's wall. 41. Lord above. Carmen wanted to do it right. "We take what I have to the state, not the county. Skip the locals entirely. Build it slow and build it clean." "Slow gets him killed," Sully said, jerking his chin at me. "He has got days, not months. And clean does not survive contact with this kind of money. You hand the state a stack of copies, Pierce's lawyers tie it up a year. And meanwhile, the originals, the only thing on earth that proves those forgeries, take a quiet little trip to the bottom of a lake." "Then what?" Carmen said, sharper than she meant to. She had been fighting alone a long time, and it showed in her. "Then you do not bring them copies. You bring them the box, the real article. Forgeries in his own hand, the master ledger, all of it." Sully tapped the table. "That, even a bought county cannot make disappear." They both looked at me. I thought about Sam Whitfield in that rented room. I thought about Hector Reyes on a dry, straight road. I thought about my own name, written out in a stranger's careful hand. "We get the box," I said. "I want in." We all turned. Cody stood in the doorway of the unit, pale and set-jawed, having trailed me here against every instruction I had given him. "I signed the thing," he said. "That makes it mine to help fix. Do not tell me to go home. Grandpa, I am done going home." "Absolutely not. You are the one thing in this whole mess Pierce can still use against me. You stay clear of it." "He already uses me against you," Cody fired back. And there was a grown man's anger in it I had never heard from him. "Every day I sit on my hands is another day I hand him." I did not have an answer for that. Lord help me, the boy was right, and I hated that he was right. We made our plan that afternoon, the 4 of us, around a card table in a cold storage unit, the way most desperate plans get made. Sully did most of the talking, and I was glad to let him. He had spent 3 decades thinking like the kind of men we were up against. The box would be wherever Pierce ran things from, he figured. Not a bank and not a law office, but somewhere private with his own people sitting on it. We would not know the real layout until we saw it, which meant somebody had to lay eyes on the place first. Carmen would dig into whatever Pierce owned or rented in the county, so we knew what we were walking into. I would take the inside, since I was the only soul Travis would open a door for. "And the boy," Sully said, tipping his head at Cody, "is the only one of us with a reason to walk in the front door. Pierce takes him for a scared kid he already owns. That is the most useful thing a man can be in a fight. Underestimated." Cody sat up a little straighter. That was where Carmen planted her heels. "You are staking all our lives on a man who has spent 2 years lying for Pierce. What if that open gate is the trap? What if Travis hands you to them gift-wrapped?" It was a fair question. I had chewed the same one the whole drive over. "A man lying to your face does not weep at his own mother's grave. I said, he is frightened, not rotten. I have bet on that boy before, and never once lost. And if you lose this time, Sully asked, not unkindly, then I am an old fool. And you bring the Nova. Something close to a smile crossed his weathered face. She is gassed up and waiting. That night my phone buzzed with a number I did not know. One line, no name. It said, he moves the box Sunday. After that, it is gone for good. If you are coming, it has to be the night before. I will leave the side gate open. Do not make me regret this. I sat with that a long while. Sunday was 4 days off. Whatever door Travis Cole had spent 2 years too frightened to open, he had just cracked it an inch and set his own neck in the gap. I texted back a single word. Where? Travis's answer came back in pieces over the next 2 days. Each text from a different number. Each one gone the moment I read it. The box was kept at the old Dayton Auto Auction Yard off Route 9. A dead lot Pierce had leased through a company with a name that meant nothing. Carmen ran it down. The lease traced through 3 shell companies before it dead-ended, which Sully said was the surest sign yet we had the right place. Honest men do not need 3 masks. We drove out to see it for ourselves after dark, Sully and I. His headlights off the last quarter mile. We left the Nova in the tree line and went the rest of the way on foot. I am 64 years old, and my knees said so with every step. But Sully moved through that dark like the young deputy he had once been. And I followed his back. What I saw through that chain-link fence turned my stomach. It was not a salvage yard. It was a butcher shop for automobiles. Under work lights, men moved between a dozen vehicles in every stage of being taken apart. Doors off, hoods gaping, one man throwing sparks off a grinder as he worked at something on a frame. I watched another peel a sticker from a windshield and smooth a new one into its place, easy as switching a price tag. They were not only stealing shops, they were stealing the cars inside them, cutting them to pieces, giving the pieces new names, and selling them off. Every garage Pierce swallowed fed this place. Sully put his mouth close to my ear. See the trailer? Back left? The one with the light still on? I saw it. A single-wide office trailer set off from the work, its windows lit. A heavy man sitting on the metal steps with a shotgun laid across his knees like a sleeping dog. A man does not guard a junkyard with a scattergun, Sully breathed. Whatever is worth guarding is in that trailer. There is your box. Off to one side, apart from all of them, I picked out a lone figure pushing a broom across the concrete. Slow, going nowhere in particular. Even at that distance, I knew the set of those shoulders. Travis. They had him sweeping, like a man on a chain gang, while another fellow leaned against a post and watched him do it. He was not one of them. He was a prisoner who had not yet been told he was a prisoner. Hold on, son, I thought. Just hold on, 2 more days. And then I saw her, my Chevelle, Ruth's green Chevelle, set apart from the wrecks under a clean white light, gleaming, washed, untouched. Someone had shined her up and stood her there pretty as a county fair ribbon, and the sight of my wife's car in that place of butchery put a sound up in my throat that Sully had to clamp a hand over my mouth to stop. That is Ruth's car, I thought. And for a moment, I could not get any air at all. 11 years of Saturdays. Ruth singing off-key to the radio while I set the timing. That was what they had buffed to a shine and stood under a spotlight like a trophy in a thief's parlor. Sully kept his hand on me until the worst of it passed through. Until I remembered that grief is a loud thing, and a man who means to win must be quiet. 2 men stood near her, smoking. The wind carried just enough. "Boss wants the old man out here Sunday himself," one said. "Behind the wheel. For the cameras. Says it has to look right." Look right for what? Does not matter to you or me. The first man dropped his cigarette and ground it under his boot. Come Sunday, it all goes away. The shop, the car, the old man, the whole headache. Quiet and clean. Boss has done it more times than you have had birthdays. The other one laughed, low. And that laugh was the worst of it. Because there is a kind of laugh men only make about a thing already as good as done. I did not understand all of it then. I only knew, the way you know coming weather in a bad knee, that whatever Sunday was, it was no handover. You do not wash a man's car to give it back to him. And you do not need him behind the wheel, for the cameras, just to watch him put his name on a piece of paper. A dog started up somewhere off to our right. A deep, businesslike barking, and a flashlight beam came swinging toward the fence. Sully had me by the collar before I finished thinking. We went back into the dark on our bellies, fast. The gravel tearing at my palms, the dog screaming behind us. And we did not stop until we were in the tree line again, our chests heaving like bellows. I lay there in the leaves with my heart trying to climb out through my ribs. And a strange calm settled over me. The fear was gone. I had heard them with my own ears. I knew now, past any doubt left in me, that Roland Pierce did not mean only to ruin me. He meant to bury me, and let the world call it an accident. The same as Hector Reyes on his dry road. The same as Sam Whitfield's boy in that wired-up shop. A man can fight ruin. There is no fighting that. There is only getting there first. "Dale," Sully whispered, when he had the wind to. "We are not getting in there by sneaking. You saw it. Too many men. Too many eyes." He dragged the sleeve across his face. "There is exactly one way a person walks into that yard before Sunday and walks back out again. Through the front. Invited." I knew what he was telling me. I had known it since the storage unit, and God forgive me, I had already let the boy talk me into it. "Cody," I said, "of all the hard things I have ever done, taping a wire to my grandson's chest was the hardest." Sully showed me how, his old cop hands steady where mine shook. Cody held still and tried to look brave. And he looked so much like his father at that age that I had to turn away and pretend to fuss with the receiver. I had already buried one boy I could not protect. I stood there in Carmen's storage unit, asking the Lord what kind of man sends his last blood into a place like that, and getting back no answer I wanted to hear. The plan was Cody's own, and that shamed me, because it was a good one. He would drive out to the yard in broad daylight, the scared kid finally come around. He would tell Pierce he wanted to understand what he had signed, that maybe a partnership was not the end of the world, that he was worn out fighting his stubborn old grandfather. Pierce would swallow it whole, Cody said, because Pierce believed everybody sells. Cody would just be selling. "You get a look at that trailer if it comes natural," Sully told him. "And you keep that man talking. His kind love an audience. Let him brag. And Cody," he took the boy by the shoulder, "the second your gut says leave, you leave. No box, no proof on this earth is worth you. You hear me?" Sully and I waited in the Nova down a service road within reach of the wire. And I have never in all my years prayed so hard while sitting so still. The receiver crackled. We heard the gate, the dogs, a man asking Cody's business, and then Pierce, warm as a summer porch. "Cody, what a pleasant surprise. Come in, come in." For a long while it was only talk. Pierce playing the gracious host, walking the boy through his butcher shop like a museum of fine cars. Cody did his part, asking eager, foolish questions. And Pierce, just as Sully had promised, could not resist a captive ear. He talked about scale, about efficiency, about how sentiment was the one thing that had ever made a man poor. At one point, the boy steered them near the lit trailer, asking where the real business got handled, the books and such. Pierce only laughed. "A careful man keeps his important things where he can lay eyes on them, Cody." But I heard a door swing open, and my grandson's breath catch before Pierce called him along. Cody had seen inside that trailer, and we would need that. Then Cody, bless his nerve, asked about the green Chevelle. There was a pause on the wire that put my heart up in my mouth. "Ah," Pierce said, "your grandfather's pride and joy. Between us, Cody, that car is the centerpiece of a little event I have arranged for Sunday. A demonstration for some associates of mine weighing investments in this region. They like to see how I handle a difficult acquisition, beginning to end." A chair creaked. "Your grandfather is going to take that car out for one last drive. Cutter's Grade, that long hill east of town. And somewhere on the way down, those tired old brakes simply fail him. A tragedy. An old man too proud to let go of the past, too stubborn to trust his car to younger hands." His voice never so much as wavered. He might have been describing an oil change. On camera, naturally. My associates do appreciate a documented result. He is reading me my own obituary, I thought, and half bored doing it. In the dark of that Nova, Sully laid a hand on my arm, like he feared I might tear the door clean off its hinges getting out there. I did not move. I could not. I only sat and listened to a man explain, in the pleasantest voice you ever heard, exactly how and where he meant to murder me, and call it breaks. And somewhere beneath the horror of it, cold and quiet, a second thought had already begun to turn. He had built me a trap on a hill, with cameras running, in front of an audience he wanted to impress. But a trap is only a trap for as long as the other fellow does not know it is there. The moment he knows, it stops being a trap. It becomes a stage. And whatever else was true that day, I had always known my way around an automobile a great deal better than Roland Pierce ever would. "You have gone pale, son," Pierce said then, and his tone cooled half a degree. "I hope I have not upset you. You did not drive all the way out here to warn the old man, did you?" "No, sir." I heard Cody force a laugh up out of himself. "I came because I am tired of going down with a sinking ship. I just did not figure you for, you know, that part." A silence. Long. I have aged whole years in shorter silences. "No," Pierce said at last, warm again. "I don't suppose you did. Smart boy. Smarter than your grandfather, I think." He got out. He walked, did not run, the whole way to his truck. And only a mile down the road, sure of it at last, did his voice come apart on the wire. "Grandpa?" He was crying now. The man gone and the boy come back. "Grandpa, he is going to kill you. He said it like it was nothing." "I heard. Son," I said into the dark. "You did good. You did so good. You hear me?" But Cody was not done. "There is more. Right before I left, one of his men came up and said something low in his ear. And Pierce looked at me funny. And then he said it again, louder. On purpose, I think. He said, 'Find out who has been talking to Travis Cole.'" Cody's voice dropped to almost nothing. "Grandpa, They know. They know somebody got to Travis. We cannot wait for tonight. We have to go now, or there will not be a Travis left to open that gate. There was no time left to be clever. Pierce knew there was a leak, and he had said Travis's name out loud. If we waited for morning, we would not be stealing a box. We would be burying a boy. So we went that same night, before our nerve could talk good sense into us. Sully wired me up again, this time with a little radio in my ear and his old service piece riding under his jacket, which he swore he would not use, and I prayed he would not have to. Carmen waited a half-mile out with her car running, and a drive ready to copy everything the second we had it. Cody held the wheel of his truck at the tree line, and I had argued myself hoarse trying to keep him out of it, and lost, because that boy would not be kept anymore. Side gate, Sully murmured in my ear as I crossed the dark field on foot. Travis said he would leave it. If it is locked, you turn around. Promise me that. I did not promise him. The gate was open. I slipped through and eased it shut behind me, and the click of the latch sounded loud as a gunshot in my ears. For a moment, I stood with my back against a cold shipping container, breathing. Every shadow suddenly a man lying in wait. 64 years old, a church-going mechanic, creeping through a thief's stronghold in the dark. The yard was quieter at night, the work lights down to a scattered few. The dogs penned somewhere I could hear but not see. I worked along the fence line in the shadows toward the lit trailer, and a hand came out of the dark and nearly stopped my heart. It was Travis. He looked 10 years older than he had at the cemetery. They have been asking the men all day who I talked to, he whispered, shaking. I have got maybe an hour before somebody remembers seeing me near a phone. The guard on the trailer is named Boyd. I sent him to the front gate, told him the boss wanted him. He will not be gone long. He pressed a key into my palm. Bottom drawer of the file cabinet. Gray metal box. Go. I will watch the yard. The trailer smelled of stale cigarettes and cold coffee. I found the cabinet, and the key turned, and there it was, heavier than I had braced for. The weight of 41 ruined lives in gray steel. Everything he is, I thought, shut up in one cold box. My hands were not steady. I thought of Ruth, of how she used to say, "The Lord does not call the equipped, He equips the called." And I held to that, because I did not feel equipped for 1 second of what I was doing. Outside the thin wall, close enough to touch, 2 men passed, talking low, and I stood frozen with that box against my chest, not breathing, while a flashlight beam crawled across the window glass above my head and slid away. My heart was knocking like a thrown rod in a dying engine. "Boyd is moving back your way," Sully said sharp in my ear. 2 minutes, maybe less. I did not have 2 minutes. I had the box under my arm and was halfway to the door when a dog started screaming. Not the penned ones, a loose one. And then a man's voice yelled something I could not make out, and the whole yard came up like a kicked hive. Lights, boots on gravel. Somebody, off in the dark, shouting Travis's name. "They have him," I breathed. "Sully, they have got Travis." "You cannot help that boy with this box in your hands," Sully said. "Hard as a hammer. Get to the truck. That is the only way you help anybody tonight." It was the hardest thing I have done, leaving the sound of those voices behind me. But I ran. Old as I am, I ran like a young man with 30 years put back in his legs. The box hammering my ribs, branches tearing at me in the dark. The loose dog found my trail and came after me, and I felt the heat of it at my heels and did not dare look back. I hit the fence and went over it the way I had not gone over a fence since boyhood, and dropped hard on the far side, into Cody's headlights, lungs on fire, both hands torn open. And then, blessed sight. Travis came over that fence right behind me, bleeding from a split lip, having torn himself loose from somebody. We piled into the truck, and Cody drove like the devil himself was riding in the bed. And behind us the yard was all lights and engines, men scrambling to give chase. A pair of headlights swung out onto the road behind us, and Cody put his foot flat to the floor. The old truck roared, and we took the first turn so hard the box nearly slid off my lap. Then a second, then a third, down back roads only a local boy would know. Little by little, the lights behind us fell away and were gone. Travis sat in the back with his head against the glass and blood on his teeth. And he began, of all things, to laugh. A cracked, broken, almost holy sound. "What in the world?" I said. "It is in there." He nodded at the box on my lap. The thing he had on me, the paper, the photographs, all of it. He has held it over my head for 2 years. Tears cut clean tracks through the dirt on his face. I am not his anymore, Mr. Brennan. Whatever comes now, I am not his anymore. I looked down at that cold steel box, then back at the headlights swarming out of the gate behind us. And I understood that we had won the one thing and lost the other in the very same breath. We had the proof at last, and we had just told Roland Pierce, past all doubt, exactly who had come for him. We did not go home. Home was the first place they would look. Sully took us up into the hills to a hunting cabin he kept. One room that smelled of wood smoke and gun oil. And there, by a kerosene lamp, my torn hands wrapped in a dish towel, and Travis pressing frozen peas to his split lip, we finally opened the box. Nobody spoke for a while. We were all shaking. The kind that comes after, not during, when the body finally catches up to what it has done. Carmen wrapped Cody's knuckles where he had torn them on the wheel. Sully cleaned the old service piece he had not had to fire. His hands steady, his eyes anything but. An hour before, we had been ordinary people. We were not anymore. I have seen some hard things in my time. I had never seen evil keep such tidy books. It was all in there, organized the way I organize a parts bin, a master ledger in a careful, patient hand. Every town, every shop, every name, with dates and dollar figures and a small check mark beside the ones that were, in his own word, completed. There were folders of original documents, the true signatures Pierce had traced from, and clipped beside each one the forgery, kept together like before and after photographs. He had saved all of it, a craftsman proud of his work. This is a man who feels nothing, I thought, looking down those tidy rows. Nothing at all. Carmen went through it without a sound, her jaw set hard, until she reached a folder near the back, and her hands went still. Reyes, she read. Hector, she opened it. Inside were photographs of her father's shop, a schedule of payments, and a single typed page near the bottom that I watched pull the color out of her face. She read it twice. Then she set it down very gently, as if it might shatter, and said in a voice gone flat and far away, "It was no accident. They cut his brake line. There is an invoice for it right here, billed to the operation as site maintenance." She looked up at me. "My father's murder." Filed under maintenance. There was nothing anybody could say to that. Outside, an owl called once and went quiet. She did not cry. I think she had cried all of that out years before. She folded the page once, then again, and slid it inside her jacket over her heart. And when she spoke, there was an iron in her voice I had not heard before. All this time, they told me I was crazy. The insurance man, the sheriff, my own aunt, Carmen. Accidents happen. Carmen, you have to let it go. She pressed her hand flat against the place where the page lay. I am keeping this. Whatever else we do tonight, I am keeping this. I found my own folder soon after. My signature. Studied and copied a dozen times over. A photograph of Ruth Chevelle taken through my own shop window. They had been watching me for weeks before Pierce ever shook my hand. And behind my folder were more and more. Names I did not know. Lives I would never meet. Every one filed and checked off and forgotten. Carmen had confirmed 41. The ledger held far more. We had never known the half of him. Travis had gone quiet in his corner. After a while, he reached into the box and drew out a thin folder with his own name on the tab, and opened it and looked a long, long time. I did not ask what was in it. A man is owed his private griefs. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady for the first time since the cemetery. I always figured if this ever saw daylight, it would end me, he said. But look at it. It is just paper. It is the worst day of my life on a piece of paper. He set the folder back in the box, with the rest of the evidence, where it belonged. I am through hiding from it, but it was Sully, going through that ledger with a lawman's patient eye, who found the thing that took the wind out of the rest of us. There is a second column here, he said slowly. Payments out. Regular. Going back years. He ran his thumb down the page, and I watched a man who had carried a badge 30 years go gray. I know some of these names. Dale. There is money going to a deputy I served beside, and money going to somebody in the prosecutor's own office. He closed the ledger like it had teeth in it. You see what this is? This is the reason nobody ever stopped him. We cannot walk this into the county courthouse. Half that courthouse is written down in this book. So there we sat, 4 worn-out people and a beaten boy, holding a box that proved everything, with not one safe soul on earth to hand it to. I felt the floor of my whole plan give way. If the men sworn to fight Pierce were taking his money, then every road I had pictured led right back through his front door. And then my own phone. The one Sully had told me twice to shut off and sink in the lake, buzzed in my coat pocket. I should not have answered it. I answered it. Dale. Roland Pierce. Calm as still water. You have taken something of mine. I will not insult either of us by pretending you do not know what it is worth, or what I will do to get it back. A pause, and I could hear the smile come into his voice. But I am a reasonable man, and our Sunday appointment still stands. That Chevelle of yours still runs like a dream. So this is how it will go. You will bring me my box, and in return, I will let you choose. The grandson, the Reyes girl, or my own little Judas you pulled off my payroll. One of the 3 walks away whole. You decide which. A man can hold steady through plain fear, but the choice Pierce had laid on me was a different poison. By the time the lamp burned low, it had worked its way into all of us. One of 3. You decide which. Cody would not look at anybody. Carmen sat with her father's page over her heart and one hand flat on the box, like she would sooner die than let it go. And I believed she meant exactly that. And Travis, Travis had not said a word in an hour. And when a man like Travis goes quiet, it is not peace. It is a storm building. "We give it back." He said it to the floor at first. Then he lifted his head, and his eyes were wild. "We give him the box, all of it, and we run. Tonight. Each a different direction. He gets what he wants, and maybe he lets the rest go." "He does not let things go," Carmen said, low and even. "Ask my father. Your father is dead, and so are we if we hold on to this." Travis was on his feet now, trembling. "You did not grow up the way I did. You do not know what it is to have a man own you, body and soul. I cannot go back to being owned, and I cannot wait for him to kill one of you to make his point. I would hand him the whole world before I would be the reason somebody here dies." Cody spoke then, small and miserable. "Maybe he is right, Grandpa. I started all this. I do not want anybody dying because I signed a piece of paper." "Nobody is handing that man a single page of this," Carmen said. "And there was a blade in it. I did not bury my father and chase this monster across 6 states to give it back at the first threat." "Easy now," Sully said, in the worn voice of a man who had talked people off worse ledges. "Everyone here is scared, and scared is the soil that man grows his crop in." He looked at me. "Dale, they are your people. Say something to them." I stood up, my old knees cracking in the quiet, and I went to Travis and put my hands on his shoulders the way I had at his mother's grave. "I cannot promise you we win, son. I will not lie to you to keep you here. We might lose. We might all of us lose." I held his eyes. "But you have been a slave for 2 years, and it near killed you. Tonight you finally quit being one. Hand that box back, and you do not go back to safe. You go back to owned. Only this time, you will have chosen it yourself." I let it sit. I would rather bury a free man than shake hands with a slave, even when the free man is me. He began to cry, and he did not answer me. And I thought, like a fool, that I had reached him. The others bedded down one by one in the dark. Carmen with the box for a pillow. Cody curled up small the way he used to as a boy. Sully by the door with one eye open, the habit of a man who had kicked in too many doors to ever sleep all the way through again. I lay listening to the wind worry at the cabin walls and tried to pray. But all that came was Ruth's name, over and over, like a man calling out for water. Sully had made every one of us pull the battery from our phones hours before, the moment Pierce's call ended. Every one. I had watched Travis do it. Or I had believed I watched him do it. It was near 3 in the morning when I woke from a thin sleep and saw that his bedroll was empty. I found him on the cabin porch in the cold, and the sight of it stopped me dead in the doorway. He had a phone pressed to his ear, and through the little speaker, tinny and pleasant in the mountain quiet, I made out a voice I knew. "All of it forgiven. Travis. The slate wiped clean. You were always my best, you know that. One small thing. Just tell me where the old man is sleeping tonight, and you walk away free, money in your pocket. All of this behind you." Travis saw me standing there. For one long, terrible moment, neither of us moved. And I watched 2 years of fear and a lifetime of being thrown away pull at that boy like a tide. "Hold, son," I thought, not daring to breathe. "Hold." I did not call out to him. I did not move toward him. You cannot save a man by grabbing hold of him. You can only stand where he can see you and let him choose. So I stood in that cold doorway and let my life, and his, hang on whatever was left of a broken boy's better nature. And it was the longest breath I have ever drawn. Then he shut his eyes. And he said into the phone, very quietly, "No." He said it again. "No." And threw the phone out into the dark as hard as he could. And I heard it shatter somewhere on the rocks below. He turned to me, wrecked and ashamed. I answered it. "I am sorry. I just wanted to hear him say it was over. I was not going to do it. Mr. Brennan, I swear before God, I was not going to do it." "I know, son," I said. And I did know. "I know you weren't." But Sully was already up, standing behind me in the dark, and he was not looking at Travis. He was looking off down the mountain, at the long gravel road that was the only way up to that cabin, where 2 sets of headlights had just turned off the highway and begun, slow and certain, to climb. "Dale," Sully said, very quietly. How long was his phone switched on? Sully did not waste a breath on blame. He had the box in his arms before I had my boots on. "Out the back, now. Single file. Stay low. Do not bunch up." The headlights were close enough now to throw bars of light across the cabin wall. "They will come in loud to flush us out the back. We go out the back before they get the chance." We went out into the freezing dark, the 5 of us, down behind the cabin where the mountain dropped away into black timber. Behind us, I heard a vehicle slide to a stop. Doors, boots. Then a man's voice came out of the dark, unhurried, telling us there was nowhere to run and we might as well make it easy on ourselves. Sully pushed the box hard into Travis's arms. "You carry this. You run and do not stop. Whatever you hear behind you, that is how you make it right, son. Go." We ran downhill through the trees, branches tearing at us. Carmen ahead of me and Cody at my back. And then the first gunshot split the night open, and a chunk of bark blew apart beside my head. I am not ashamed to say I called on the Lord out loud as I ran. They were on us fast, men who did this kind of work for a living, and the woods filled up with their flashlights, swinging like searchlights over a prison yard. Twice I lost my footing on the wet leaves, and twice a hand hauled me up before I knew whose it was. Travis ran out ahead of us all, with that box hugged to his chest like a child. And when Cody went down over a root and a flashlight swung toward the sound of him, it was Travis who turned back into the open, hauled the boy up, and shoved him on ahead, putting his own back to the guns. The boy who had run from everything his whole life would not run from this. We came up hard against a ravine, a black cut too wide to jump, a creek roaring at the bottom. This is where it ends, I thought, staring at that drop. This is where he kills the whole lot of us. The lights were closing in behind. Cody made a sound of pure animal fear, and Carmen put her back to a tree with the face of a woman deciding how she meant to die. But Sully had not run with us. I turned, and he was 20 yards back up the slope, down on one knee behind a fallen log, his old service piece up and steady. "Deer trail, off to your left, 50 feet. Takes you down to the road," he called, calm as a Sunday morning. "The Nova is parked at the bottom. Keys are on the wheel. Go." "Sully, no." "Dale." He did not so much as turn his head. "I have been waiting 30 years for a reason this good. Take your people and go." For 1 second I stood frozen. An old man ordered to leave the oldest friend he had in the world behind in the dark. Sully and I had sat in the same grade school class. He had stood up at my wedding. He had helped carry Ruth to her grave. "Go on," he said, his eyes already back down the sights. I will hold the door. The shooting started in earnest then, his and theirs together. And under the noise of it, we found the trail, and we ran. And I heard Sully's pistol bark, and again, and once more. And then I heard the old man cry out. And then I did not hear his pistol at all. We reached the Nova at the bottom, with our hearts in pieces. I got behind the wheel, because somebody had to. And then, blessed and terrible, Sully came crashing down through the brush after us, dragging his left leg, his trouser legs soaked black, alive, having bought us our seconds and paid for them in blood. We got him into the back across Carmen's lap, and I drove that old Nova down the mountain with no headlights at all, the way Cody had taught me, without ever meaning to. And behind us, the cabin and the guns fell away into the dark. Nobody said a word for a long while. Carmen tore her shirt into strips and bound Sully's leg in the dark by feel, her hands sure, while Cody sat with the box on his knees and stared at nothing. And Travis pressed his forehead to the cold glass and wept without making a sound. We had gotten out, but getting out is not the same thing as winning, and every soul in that car knew the difference. Sully was gray and sweating, his hand clamped hard on his thigh, but his eyes were clear, and when he spoke, his voice was steady as it ever was. We cannot go to a hospital. He will have somebody watching every one in the county. He grimaced through it. And we cannot go to the law. You know that for certain now. He found my eyes in the mirror. Dale, hear me, because I have got just the one lesson left in me tonight. You have spent this whole fight trying to beat that man in the dark, in the shadows, in the quiet, where nobody is looking. That is his whole country. He owns the dark, son. He pressed down harder on his leg and breathed through his teeth. If you mean to take Roland Pierce, you have to quit hiding from him. You drag him out into the light, in front of God and everybody, where even a bought judge cannot make himself look away. You make him do it where the whole world is watching. And there it was. The very thing I had felt the cold shape of in the back of this same car days before. The night I first heard that man plan my dying. Pierce had gone and built himself a stage for Sunday. All that was left was to change the play performed on it. We holed up in the back room of a body shop that belonged to a cousin of Carmen's, a man who asked no questions and turned the radio up loud while a friend of Sully's, a retired Army medic, dug the bullet out of his leg. By the time the sun came up gray on Saturday, we were 5 fugitives with a stolen box, a wounded soldier, and a little under 30 hours before Pierce expected me behind the wheel of my wife's car to die. I will be honest with you. My first instinct was still the law. It is a hard thing for a man my age to let go of. The notion that you carry your evidence to the proper people and they set it right. Sully, propped up in gray, took that notion apart from me as gently as he could. Say we drive to the state capitol this morning, he said. Best case, we find one honest agent who believes an old mechanic and a box of paper. He opens a case. That case takes months. Subpoenas, lawyers, and the whole while, Pierce knows we are coming. And Pierce is a man who has killed to keep this quiet. He shook his head. He vanishes. The box gets challenged. Witnesses have accidents. And you, Dale, you are still dead on Sunday because nobody on God's earth can protect you by Sunday. He let it land. The law is too slow to save your life. And the only part fast enough is already on his payroll. Then what is left? Cody asked. The one thing he cannot subpoena, or buy, or bury. Carmen said quietly. She had been turning this over longer than the rest of us. The truth. Out loud. In front of everybody. all at once. And there it was. We did not have to beat his lawyers. We did not have to convince a bought judge. We only had to make certain that when Rowland Pierce did what he meant to do on Sunday, the whole world was watching. He had built the stage himself. He wanted me behind the wheel of the Chevelle, on camera, for his investors. Cameras meant a feed, and a feed could be taken. Carmen, who understood such machinery far better than I ever will, said that if she could get her hands on his equipment, she could send his private little film of an old man dying out to every newsroom and every screen in the state instead. Live, with no way on earth to call it back. It would take more than her 2 hands to do it fast. Cody, who had grown up with a phone in his palm the way I grew up with a wrench, would run the other half of it. Mirroring the feed out to a list of stations and reporters Carmen had been building for 2 years. Against the day, she finally held something nobody in the world could ignore. Sully could not run and could not fight. Not on that leg. But a man does not need his legs to be the eyes. He would sit in a truck up on the ridge with field glasses and a radio and tell us what was coming before it got to us. Travis was the one who made it possible to live through. I know exactly how he does a car, he said, his voice steady and sick at the same time. I have done it for him. He cuts the brake line most of the way through and packs it, so the fluid holds for a stop or two and then lets go all at once, usually on the 3rd hard pedal. On a grade like Cutter's, that is a death sentence. He looked at me. But if I get to her first, I can leave the proof of his tampering right there for the camera to find, and still rig her to stop when you need her to. You would be driving a car that looks murdered, and is not. He swallowed hard. If I do it right. If I do it right. There was the whole of it, balanced on 3 small words from a man who had once practiced my signature until he could steal my life with a pen. It was a desperate plan, held together with hope and baling wire. And Carmen, who was the kind to say the hard thing out loud, said so. You understand you could die anyway, she told me. Even if every single piece of this works. I have understood that since the night I read my own forged name. I said, and I had. I looked at Travis Cole a long moment. Every soul in that room watched me, waiting to see whether the old fool would really climb into a sabotaged car on the word of the boy who had betrayed him. Lord, I thought, is this faith? Or is this just an old man too tired to be afraid anymore? I could not tell. I did it anyway. I am going to drive that car, I said. And I am putting my life in your hands, son. The very hands that signed my name away. I did not say it to wound him. I said it like a fact, because it was one. I cannot think of a better way to learn what those hands are worth now. Something moved across his face then that I will carry to my own grave. He did not flinch from it. He did not weep, or promise, or swear up and down. He only nodded, slow, the way a man nods when you finally hand him the one thing he never believed he would be trusted with again. Then she will stop, he said. You have my word, Mr. Brennan. Whatever else is true about me, that car will stop when you need her to, even if I have to stop her myself. I did not understand that Saturday morning, the whole weight of what he had just promised me. I would come to understand it the next day, on the long way down Cutter's grade, when keeping that word cost Travis Cole every last thing he had. The longest night of my life was the one before the morning I was to die. Travis knew they would stage the Chevelle in an old tobacco barn at the top of Cutter's grade, where Pierce kept one key man and a couple of dogs. No crowd until morning. We went in after midnight, just the 2 of us, low and quiet, while a thin rain ticked on the tin roof and covered our sound. She sat up on ramps in the dark, my Ruth's car, and Travis went under her with a penlight clamped in his teeth the way he had 1,000 times in my shop class. He found it in under a minute. "There," he breathed and showed me. The brake line, cut 3/4 of the way through, and the gap packed with grease so it would hold and hold. And then on some hard press of the pedal halfway down that hill, let go all at once. I knelt there in the dark and looked at that clean, deadly little cut in the line of my own car. And I felt a thing I had not let myself feel in all these weeks. Not fear, fury. Cold and level and bottomless. They had not only meant to take Ruth's car, they had meant to use it as the knife. He worked fast and silent. He fitted a small camera up under the dash where it could see the pedal and the line both, and ran its signal to a transmitter Cody had built, so the whole world would witness the moment Pierce's murder came due. Then he did what he could to the line itself. A sleeve, a clamp, a prayer in steel. But when he slid out from under her, his face in the penlight was honest and afraid. "She will hold longer now," he said. "Long enough to show the camera what he did. But I will not lie to you the way he lies to people. That is a steep, mean grade, and that is a heavy old car. And my patch is a patch. If you ride her brakes down hard, she could still go. The only sure way to stop a car that wants to run is to put something in front of it." He met my eyes. "So I am going to be at the bottom. Whatever happens up top, I will be at the bottom of that hill, and I will not let her reach the curve. You drive her down. I will catch her." A flashlight beam swept the barn window then, and a dog growled close, and we went flat behind the workbench and did not breathe, while a bored man with a lantern walked the length of the barn and back out. When the door shut, I found I had Travis's hand gripped tight in mine in the dark. 2 grown men holding on like scared boys. And neither of us let go for a while after the danger passed. Out in the rain afterward, I tried once to talk him out of his half of it. "There has to be another way to stop that car," I said. "One that does not put you out in front of it." He shook his head, calm in a way that frightened me worse than fear would have. "You are the one who taught me you do not send a machine to do a man's job," he said. "I helped him take 41 of them, Mr. Brennan. I do not get to sit safe in a van for this." He almost smiled. "Let me do one thing in my life my mother would have been proud of. Let me be the thing in the road." By the gray of first light, Carmen's voice came over the radio, tight and ready. She and Cody were parked in a van within reach of Pierce's relay, fingers on the splice, waiting for his feed to go live so they could steal it out from under him and hand it to the world. Sully was up on the ridge with his field glasses and his radio and his ruined leg. Every piece was where it needed to be, which left only me. I found Cody before I went. I did not make a speech of it. I took the boy by the back of the neck the way I had the day all this began, and I told him that whatever the next hour brought, he had already made his grandmother proud, and his father, and me. He tried to say something back and could not. I told him that was all right. Some things do not need saying out loud. Then I did the last thing that was mine to do. I sat in my truck in the rain, and I gave the whole of it over to the Lord, plain and out loud, the way Ruth had taught me. I did not ask him to spare me. I asked him to steady my hands and my heart, and to keep my people, and if this was my day, to let it count for something. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I had carried that verse like a hot coal in my chest for weeks. That morning, for the first time, I felt the burning in it settle into something quiet and sure. The top of Kerr's grade, when I drove up it, looked like one man's notion of a party. Pierce had a tent and coffee and a half-dozen well-dressed strangers from out of state, with the soft, curious faces of people come to watch something interesting. He had 2 cameras up on tripods, and there at the center of all of it, gleaming green in the wet morning light, washed and patient, sat my wife's car. Both traps are set now, I thought, looking at that car and those waiting cameras. We are about to find out which one springs. Roland Pierce came toward me with both hands out, smiling, like I was an old friend arriving late to his own surprise party. Dale, he said, I am so glad you decided to be reasonable. Did you bring my box? It has been the better part of a year now, and I have learned that some things mend, and some only scar over and ache when it rains. What the whole state watched happen on Cutter's grade that morning could not be unwatched. There was no judge bought deep enough, no lawyer slick enough to put a thing like that back in the dark, once 100,000 people had seen it in the light. They arrested Roland Pierce in his tent before the sirens reached him, and the box did the rest. Every name, every forgery, every quiet payment to men who wore badges and held office. A great many people went to prison that year who had long believed they never would. Sam Whitfield lived to see it. The last time I saw him, he told me he could finally sleep. The state untangled what it could of the stolen shops and farms, and gave back what was left. It was never everything. You cannot hand a man back the years or the son he lost. But Carmen got her father's name cleared in the very courtroom that once told her she was crazy for asking. And she stood and read his name into the record in front of all of them. And I was never prouder to know a soul in my life. Carmen took down her wall of red string at last, because she did not need it anymore. And she has spent this year helping the families who hung on it find what pieces of their lives could still be found. Sully walks with a cane now and complains about it without ceasing, which is how I know he is going to be fine. And Cody, my grandson, is not the frightened boy who signed a paper in a parking lot. He runs Brennan's garage now, the sign freshly painted, his own name added under mine, and folks for miles have learned the young Brennan does honest work. We did not rebuild the Chevelle. Some things you are not meant to put back the way they were. But Cody and I towed her home, and on Saturdays, the 2 of us work on her. Slow. No hurry in it. The way I once worked beside another boy who had nobody else in the world. We will never finish her, and that is all right. The work was never really about the car. It was about having a reason to sit beside the boy in the quiet, the way an old man needs a reason. Cody hands me wrenches he cannot name, the way his grandmother once did. And now and again, I catch myself about to call him by another name, and I let it pass. And we keep working. I buried Travis Cole next to his mother. The whole town turned out. The same town that had spent 2 years calling him a thief. Because that same state had watched, live and in the rain, exactly how a thief chooses to die. I put no dates on his stone, only his name, and underneath it, the truest thing I know about him. He kept his word. I go out there more than I ought to. I sit a while and tell him things, the way you do. That Cody is doing well. that the dogwood by the fence has come in. Mostly, I just sit. Because the plain truth is that in all the years I had that boy, I never once told him the one thing he most needed to hear. That he was never the disappointment he had decided he was. So I tell him now. I do not know if a man can hear you from where Travis has gone. But I have made up my mind to believe the good ones can. I have had a year now to sit with what it all meant, and this is the best I have come to. We like to tell ourselves that justice is a thing that happens in a courtroom, handed down to us by the proper people. But the proper people can be bought, and the courtroom can be empty. And some days, justice is only a stubborn old man, a wounded old soldier, and a brave young woman with a wall full of the dead. All of them refusing to let a wicked thing stay hidden one more day. Justice is not handed to you. More often it is carried by whoever will bend down and pick it up. And a man, any man, even one who has done terrible things, is never only the worst thing he ever did. Right up to the very last breath, there is room to turn around. I am an old man, and I do not understand the half of what God allows in this world. I do not know why he let that boy carry his chains 2 long years, or why he asked Travis to buy his freedom back with his life. But I know this much. God did not waste him. God took a thrown-away boy the whole world had given up on, and made him, in the end, the bravest soul on that mountain. And I believe, with everything left in this tired heart of mine, that when Travis came at last to his Maker's door, with my name still warm on his lips, the Lord did not see a thief standing there. He saw a son come home. So that is the whole of my story, friend. The one I needed to tell you tonight. If it found its way into your heart, do me one small kindness in return. Think of the proud old folks in your own life, the ones too stubborn to ask for help, and go ask them how they are really doing. And if you have a moment, leave a word below and tell me you were here. And stay close to this little channel of ours, because there are more stories like this one waiting. And we are nowhere near done telling the truth. Until the next time we sit together, this is just an old mechanic, wishing you and yours a little grace and a clear road home.